House of the Dragon is centered around a civil war between two separate factions within House Targaryen. While a few of the great houses of Westeros made appearances in the first season, they've taken a back seat to the Targaryens, the Hightowers, and the Velaryons thus far. However, as war breaks out between the Greens and the Blacks, they're set to play a more featured role in the coming season as the action develops. In this video, I'm going to discuss their activity in the years leading up to the war, the connections they have in this era, or what they might do early in Season 2, all according to Fire and Blood. This discussion will feature the main houses that ally with Rhaenyra in the main canon. In a separate video, I'll be doing the same with the Grey houses that side with Aegon. And with that being said, this is my fair warning for potential spoilers. The great houses of Westeros that are expected to ally with Rhaenyra are the Starks of Winterfell, House Arryn of the Vale, the Tullys of Riverrun, and eventually House Greyjoy of Pyke. Like many other houses throughout the realm, the Starks were present at the Great Council of 101, where Eddard Stark infamously went against Viserys and voted in favor of the opposing party. This agenda was widely believed to be derived from an everlasting grudge that the Starks held against King Jaehaerys and Queen Alysanne that originated decades prior. About 40 years before the Great Council, Jaehaerys and Alysanne planned a trip to the north as part of their royal progress. They were received by Alaric Stark, who wasn't a fan of King Jaehaerys to begin with, in large part due to the way he handled the aftermath of Maegor Targaryen's reign, which unfortunately led to the death of his older brother. When Alysanne paid a visit to Brandon's gift, she concluded that the Night's Watch would need more land to help them prosper as an order. Her solution was a proposal for a new gift of land that the Starks would need to accommodate for them. According to Maester Yandel, the Starks were not happy with this solution. They were concerned that the land would go to waste under the control of the Night's Watch, and in due time they were proven right. The new gift is now largely abandoned because of the decline of the Watch and the threat of raiders from beyond the wall. These sequence of events created hard feelings that carried over across multiple generations. It's implied that Viserys had the king's favor over other qualifying successors, and it's believed that for this reason, Eddard decided to support the opposing claim. About 10 years later, the new Lord of Winterfell, Rickon Stark, appears in the capital to pledge fealty to Viserys and his new heir, Rhaenyra. It would be another 10 years or so before Rickon is succeeded by Cregan Stark, the Lord of Winterfell in the current timeline, who's set to appear early in Season 2. Cregan initially needed a regent because of his young age, but he was forced to grow up quickly. While the Targaryens had a succession conflict developing down south, the Starks had to deal with one of their own. Cregan's regent and uncle, Bernard Stark, tried to suppress him from coming into power when he came of age. In order to secure his lordship, he was forced to rise up and take the north into his own hands by imprisoning Bernard and his 3 sons. In the final episode of the season, Rhaenyra sends Jace as an envoy to treat with Cregan and win him over to their side. By the time he reaches Winterfell, Cregan would have already settled down into his role as the head of House Stark. According to Archmaester Gildain, Jace's mission ends in success. He leaves Winterfell having signed the Pact of Ice and Fire, while also having developed a brotherhood with Cregan in the short time he was there. The dynamic between these two is one I'm definitely looking forward to in the coming season, and Fire and Blood certainly leaves room for interpretation and controversy. While the allegiance of House Stark is a win in of itself, the strength of their armies are of course contingent on them marching south. The houses of the north often find themselves too far removed from the politics of the south to have a stake in the game. Even so, we can count on House Stark to be there when it's all said and done. House Arryn makes a more subtle appearance in the opening episode of House of the Dragon in the form of the late Queen Aemma. While Emma's physical traits certainly favored that of her Targaryen side, her father Roderick was an Arryn. Roderick Arryn inherited the Eyrie at the age of 10, about 40 years before the Great Council, after the untimely death of his father. He would later sit in the small council of King Jaehaerys as his Master of Laws, the same role we saw Lionel and Jasper hold in Season 1. Roderick was widely known to be a good man. His good nature, along with his years of service and loyalty to the realm, earned him the hand of the Princess Daella Targaryen, the daughter of King Jaehaerys and Queen Alysanne. However, Daella died giving birth to their one and only child together, Aemma Arryn. Aemma would of course go on to marry the Prince Viserys, who would end up inheriting the Iron Throne in the wake of a series of unfortunate events. After the death of Roderick Arryn, the Eyrie would eventually be inherited by the Maiden of the Vale, the Lady Jane Arryn. Jane is the active ruler of the Vale in the current timeline, but like Roderick, she inherited the Eyrie at a very young age. When the Great Council was held in order to decide the heir to the Iron Throne, Jane was represented by Yorbert Royce of Runestone, who was the Lord Protector of the Vale until she came of age. It's implied that Yorbert sided with Viserys over every other opposing claim, likely because of his ties to the Vale from his marriage with Aemma. Yorbert was also the Lord of Runestone until his death, where he was succeeded by Rhea Royce, Daemon's first wife. After Daemon killed her in episode 5, he fully intended to claim the lands and titles she left behind in the name of her inheritance. We never actually see him pursue this venture in the show outside of a conversation with Gerald Royce, likely because of the time skip between episodes 5 and 6. In the main canon, and likely between the time skip in the show as well, Daemon appealed his claim to inherit Runestone, but was rejected by the Lady Jane Arryn. It was widely known throughout the realm that there was no love lost between Daemon and Rhea, and that Daemon had no respect for her. It's likely because of this that Jane didn't allow Daemon to claim Rhea's inheritance. Like Rhaenyra, Jane knows what it feels like to be undermined by the men around her. In the end, Jace was able to win her over to their side in the name of women empowerment, and because of Rhaenyra's ties to the Vale on the side of her mother. Compared to the Starks and the Arryns, the Tullys of Riverrun had less connections and were less active overall in the era that preceded the Dance of the Dragons. The active Lord of Riverrun in this timeline is expected to be Grover Tully. While there's a good chance that Grover is near death if and when we first meet him, he's actually been around for quite some time, dating back to the era of King Jaehaerys. During the Great Council, he spoke in favor of Viserys as the head of House Tully. Years later, when Rhaenyra was courting suitors for her hand in marriage, House Tully was there to shoot their shot. Many lords tried to win her hand in marriage back then, including Grover Tully's sons. When the time came to choose a side between the Greens and the Blacks, Grover was in favor of supporting King Aegon over Rhaenyra. Gildain would have us believe that Grover's perspective on the line of succession never wavered between the Great Council and the Dance of the Dragons. But I wonder if he would have felt the same way about Aegon had one of his sons married Rhaenyra. Still, Grover was in no condition to enforce his beliefs on anyone, much to his frustration from his deathbed. His grandson and heir, however, was in no rush to choose sides. In fact, he initially decided to stay out of the conflict altogether. The Tullys would remain on the sidelines until they were paid a visit by Adam Velaryon. The mere presence of his dragon Seasmoke persuaded Elmo Tully to side with Rhaenyra, and from then on, the Lords of the Trident fought by their side. House Greyjoy is all but absent from Westeros during the years that lead to the succession. Led by Dalton Greyjoy, they were originally brought into the fold by Otto Hightower, who offered him a seat in the small council and the title Master of Ships in return for his allegiance. However, Dalton would decline his request and choose to attack one of his allies instead. The Greyjoys have a reputation for being a wild card in times of uncertainty, and they definitely live up to it in this era. By the age of 10, Dalton was raiding the Basilic Isles and fighting battles in the Stepstones with his uncle. He went down in history as the Red Kraken, a nickname that was coined on the day he avenged his uncle and emerged from the battle covered in blood. He became the Lord Reaper of Pyke at 15. Upon inheriting the Iron Islands, he immediately started preparing for the coming storm that was later known as the Dance of the Dragons. While the showrunners for Hot D are bound to make some changes, I don't see them deviating too far from the main canon when it comes to the allegiances of the great houses. In any case, I thought it'd be fun to fill in some of the gaps left behind by the show ahead of the next season. My next video will feature the Lannisters and the Baratheons, as well as the houses that land in the Grey area during this conflict, which would be the Tyrells and the Martells. Let me know in the comment section below which of these houses you're most excited to see in Season 2. That's it for me. Thank you for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more content like this. Peace.